Hello everyone, welcome to Botany Insider. So in this lecture, let's discuss a small topic, and that is glycolysis in erythrocytes. We have already discussed about glycolysis and all the other subparts of what happens in respiration. I have already made a complete playlist of the same. You can watch it on the channel. So in this lecture, we'll be discussing about that how the glycolysis in erythrocytes is different from the one that we have discussed. So before that, let's understand about some of the important features that the RBC holds. So the first important feature is that there is no nucleus in the RBC, and second one is that there is no mitochondria in RBC. And because there is no mitochondria, and as we have already discussed that in mitochondria there occurs an important step of respiration, that is ETC, which is electron transport chain. And electron transport chain is the final step in which the final ATP is produced. So if there is no mitochondria, how is it possible for the RBC to have ATP for its mechanism? This is what we are going to study in this lecture. There is no oxygen present, that is there is absence of oxygen, and as there is absence of oxygen, so absence of oxygen leads to the anaerobic conditions. And how does the RBC gets its ATP? So it gets its ATP by the breakdown of the glucose, that is in the glycolysis cycle. And what is glycolysis? We have already discussed. So this was the glycolysis that we discussed in the previous lecture. Steps that are followed in the erythrocytes is almost the same as in the case of the normal cell. There are few differences. Let's discuss those differences, but before that, let's just quickly revise what we have discussed in glycolysis. So glycolysis occurs in cytosol, be it in prokaryotes or in the eukaryotes. The first step is that the glucose gets converted into glucose 6-phosphate, and it occurs in the presence of the enzyme hexokinase or the glucokinase, and also there is the presence or there is the usage of Mg2+. Now the glucose 6-phosphate gets converted into fructose 6-phosphate by the help of the enzyme isomerase, and this fructose 6-phosphate gets converted into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate with the usage of 1 ATP, and there also occurs 1 ATP usage at the step 1 in which the glucose got converted into glucose 6-phosphate. Now the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate gets converted into PGAL. Now this PGAL gets converted or gets isomerized into its other form, that is DHAP. Till this step we have our preparatory phase, and after the preparatory phase there starts off the payoff phase by the conversion of the PGAL into its isomer, that is DHAP. Now this DHAP gets converted into 1,3-BPGA. 1,3-BPGA gets converted into 3-PGA by the production of 2 ATPs, and then we have 3-PGA gets converting into its isomer, that is 2-PGA, and after that the 2-PGA in the presence of the enzyme enolase gets converted into PEP, that is phosphoenol pyruvate. Now this phosphoenol pyruvate gets converted into the final step, that is the pyruvate, by the production of 2 more ATPs, and this complete step occurs by the help of the enzyme pyruvate kinase. There are 3 regulatory steps for the glycolysis. The first one is step 1, in which glucose gets converted into glucose 6-phosphate. The positive regulator for this step is glucose, and the negative regulators are glucose 6-phosphate and the ATP. Then the second regulatory step is when the fructose 6-phosphate gets converted into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So this step gets positively regulated by fructose 2,6-bisphosphate and adenosine monophosphate, and this step gets negatively regulated, that is this step halts in the presence of citrate, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, ATP and H+. The third regulatory step is the last step, when the PEP gets converted into the pyruvate. So the positive regulators are AMP, glucose 6-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate, and the negative regulators are ATP, acetyl coenzyme A and aniline. Make sure you remember about these regulators. Why? Questions have been framed from this area many times, and we will be discussing one question from the same at the end of this video. Talking about the products, so there occurs the formation of 2 NADH, that is in total we have 5 ATPs from the NADH. Why? Because 1 NADH is equal to 2.5 ATP, and in form we have 4 ATPs produced. So in total we get 9 ATPs from glucose as produced. But talking about the net ATPs that are produced, so we have 2 ATPs being used up in the preparatory phase as we have just discussed. So there occurs 2 ATPs used out of the 9 ATPs produced, and as a result we have finally 7 ATPs produced in the complete glycolysis pathway. So this was the revision for the glycolysis. Now let's discuss about the differences that we see in the RBCs. So the complete pathway works in the same way as we have just revised. The differences are that after the formation of the pyruvate, because of the absence of the oxygen, what happens is that this pyruvate gets converted into 2-lactate. 2-pyruvate gets converted into 2-lactate in the presence of the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase. Make sure you remember about this because this is one of the unique feature of the glycolysis in RBCs. The second important unique feature is that there is also formation of the 2,3-BPG, and this formation occurs at the step when 1,3-BPGA gets converted into 3-PGA in the normal cycle. But in the RBCs, this 1,3-BPGA first gets converted into 2,3-BPG and then it gets converted into 3-PGA. So make sure you remember about the unique features. The first feature was that after the formation of 2-pyruvate, this 2-pyruvate gets converted into 2-lactate by the help of the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase in the absence of oxygen, and there occurs formation of the 2,3-BPGA at the step between 1,3-BPGA and the pyruvate. This step occurs between this, and the third important feature is that there is absence of oxygen. So let's talk about one more difference between the glycolysis in the RBCs and the glycolysis in the normal cells. So what happens is that in the glycolysis, when it occurs in the normal cell, there occurs in total 7 ATPs are produced as the final result. But in case of the RBCs, what happens is that we have only 2 ATPs being produced in the complete process. Why? Because first we have the NADH getting consumed, and where it is consumed, so when the 2-pyruvate gets converted into the 2-lactate by the help of the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase, we have the usage of the 2 NADH that are produced in the glycolysis step. So as a result of it, we have in total only 2 ATPs produced. How? So in the normal cell we had 2 NADH produced, and with that calculation we had 5 ATPs from the NADH and 4 ATPs in form. But the 2 ATPs were being consumed at step number 1 and step number 3. So that was the reason that there was 7 ATPs produced. But in case of the RBCs, what happens is that we do not have the NADH also. It is also getting consumed up. Hence, finally, we have only 2 ATPs being produced in this complete process. So let's just list down the difference between the glycolysis that happens in the RBCs and in the normal cell. So in the RBCs, there is no oxygen. The complete process occurs without the oxygen. There is the formation of 2,3-BPGA at the step number 7. Then we have the formation of the lactate and the final result, and also there occurs the usage of the NADH. And talking about the net ATPs, so we have in total only 2 ATPs being produced in case of the RBCs. So this was all about it. So now let's discuss one question from the same. So the question is asking about that what is the effect of the sudden increase in the level of ATP and also increase in the citrate on an erythrocyte undergoing the glycolysis. It is talking about the glycolysis which is occurring in the RBCs, and we have to answer that what would be the sudden effect if there occurs increase in the ATP and also increase in the citrate. So this question is basically from the regulation of the glycolysis. So as we have just discussed that as a result of the increase in the citrate and the ATP, the glycolysis would be negatively regulated, and as a result of negative regulation because of the increase in ATP and the citrate, what would happen is that it would inhibit the glycolysis. Why? Because these two agents are negative regulators of glycolysis. As they are negatively regulating the glycolysis in a normal cell, in the same way the ATP and citrate would be negatively regulating the erythrocyte undergoing the glycolysis also, because the complete glycolysis mechanism is same in both the cells and also the RBCs. Only difference lies at these particular steps. So the regulation is the same for both the normal cells and for the RBCs. Hence we have to remember that citrate and ATP, both of them are negative regulators of glycolysis, and hence we have the final answer as that it would inhibit the glycolysis. This we're done with the topic of the glycolysis in erythrocytes. So I hope this video was helpful for you, and if you like this video, please do like, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to my channel. And also please do let me know in the comments whichever topic you feel like that you want me to make a video on, or you are having any issue in that particular topic. I'll make a video on the same. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.